sort of how I made my mark here. I was the guy who poured himself into GBA coverage, and even though I was just like some jackass who didn't have any experience, they were like, yeah, you can write about that, sure. And eventually
I started that way. A lot of people started that way. Is there still a way to start that way in this
I don't
field?
think so,
I don't think there is
because
either.
once in
Because
GBA arrives,
there's not like an overlooked beat that you can still get paid for.
I guess
you'd have to be
iPhone
like
games.
but do people pay for iPhone reviews? No.
no.
I think if to answer that short question, I think if someone actually blew out with like really good iOS coverage, then again, I don't really pay attention to what's actually out there that much. But
Yeah, I tried really hard for us to have good iOS coverage, but actually distilling that down and finding the few good things that come out each week is just so hard. And I admire the hell out of Danny Cowan for continuing to. He still does. He still does the
Finger gaming. Right?
finger gaming, right? And
Finger
he's been doing
gaming, that
for
is
like 3
that is a
years.
sister site to Gamma Sutra,
Right,
Finger
exactly.
Gaming.
And like that is an odious and onerous charge, and I admire him for sticking with it. Ornery. Yeah.
Ray Barnholt just tweeted like I just put Samurai Warriors Chronicle into my 3DS. Somewhere a freelancer's check just fell over and died.
Oh man!
Well, on top of that,
that's yeah. So okay, I have a quick question for the roundtable. Who here reviewed a Dynasty Warrior game as a freelancer? Raise your hands.
I fortunately
Oh,
escaped
totally. Yeah, I did.
No.
Yeah.
Well, it's only 50%. Me and Caller.
What was
We
your,
had,
what
we
was
had
your
pretty
first paid
extensive freelancer careers, though.
first paid GBA reviews? Go.
The Game Boy Advance launch games. I covered them for jpop.com. And then
Oh,
on
wow.
American.
I guess it depends on what you consider paid. Do you mean something that I covered just for 1UP while I had already been hired at 1UP, or something that I did as an assignment?
Yeah. The first Game Boy Advance game that you paid that you
wrote about for money.
Boktai, actually. I wrote a series about the experience of playing Boktai.
Nice.
And did a little illustrated series for a week about like how hard it was to actually find sunlight in San Francisco and play the game.
Christian?
I remember that. I read that.
I like you said, I was kind of a auto freelancer when I got my GBA. I did a lot of weird stuff that year, so I guarantee that I probably wrote about GBA. I was trying to think about like something that stands out in my mind. I got hired by GameSpy in November 2002, which was sort of the sort of the that was the heyday of the
that
GBA.
was
really,
when Metroid Fusion came out.
So from like November of 2002 till like March of 2004, I worked for GameSpy, and I just remember reviewed the first. It's kind of embarrassing. The first GBA game I reviewed for GameSpy, like the first week, was Super Monkey Ball. That 3D Super Monkey Ball.
Forgot about that.
I had really, I know. I had really big memories of oddly. I wrote the really, really. If you want to read something crazy by me, and you really, if you like me, and you don't want to like me, or something, read this. I wrote this incredibly self-indulgent review of Phantasy Star Collection for GBA because I knew, like you said, like
was it as long and self-indulgent as the Eric Jean Roy one on Insert Credit?
Probably not. I mean, that sounds pretty hard to top. But if I remember because we were saying, Parrish, about like no one's really paying attention to the corner of the world. I knew I could get away with doing whatever I wanted. So I wrote a really long self-indulgent review of Phantasy Star Collection for GBA on GameSpy.
I think the most self-indulgent thing I've ever written.
But the guy from what was Digital Eclipse?
Right.
I got an email discussion. The guy from Digital Eclipse got mad at me for my review, and I had kind of a back and forth with him for a while. I mean, he had a fair point.
Hey, I warned you guys.
Sonia!
It's Sonia
for
from
you out here, and you have got
Square
to
Enix.
hurry the hell up.
Okay. Crap, it's over.
My first.
I guess Square Enix is putting the kibosh on this podcast.
I guess so.
My
Don't say it
my
like
first
that.
was Nintendo Official Magazine UK hired me after I wrote a weird sort of gonzo thing for Insert Credit, and the first thing they assigned for me was Max Payne on the GBA.
Nice.
Yeah.
I probably turned that down and they gave it to you.
Oh, because you were working there at the time.
I was working there at the time. That was good times.
That cartridge was 2/3 recorded dialogue and 1/3 game. It was amazing.
That much, huh?
Yeah.
The third most self-indulgent thing I've ever written, aside from the 20,000 Etrian Odyssey review / fanfic and 10,000 word Super Metroid article that I wrote last year, 2 years ago, was this piece on WarioWare that I wrote just for my own benefit, which was like about me writing a review of WarioWare because the game is about creating games.
Oh, DIY?
Yeah.
Nah.
No. The first WarioWare game, like the plot is Wario creates a video game, and he creates a game that's about video games. So it's all very recursive. And a lot of comparisons to the movie adaptation came in because that's also very much of that kind of that ilk.
And around the same time.
Yeah, it was all about the same time, and it was all fresh in my mind. So.
All right, well,
funny.
all the pieces are here to go reinvent video game journalism again. We'll call it new games journalism.
Right. Let's start over with the 3DS or something.
Let's
how about Nintendo starts over with the 3DS?
Okay.
All right.
Ooh,
let's go do it.
Burn.
Nice.
All right. Thanks for listening.
The end.